as a member of this cooperative. I've got a few pointers, Mr. Speaker, which I raised, which I just want to highlight on them briefly, because I just put my thoughts really quick. Number one, what I don't find in this legislation, although I support it, is on the issue of prioritization of sustainability development of the coffee sector in this country. We need now to demystify further. We need to go to Transoia and say, do we have a database of all farmers here who are coffee farmers? If yes, we do, anybody else who wants to become a coffee farmer goes through, gets into that database, and he is assisted by that cooperative. Number two, we need to ensure, which I'm not seeing here, and the reason why I'm not seeing here, Mr. Speaker, is because of the issue of setting up a board. This agriculture in this country is devolved. The framers of the Constitution were very clear. They want food security. They want sustainability. They want us to be able to develop our agricultural sector. The only way we can develop our agricultural sector, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to ensure that we develop clear guidelines and regulation for coffee production, processing, and marketing from county to county. I'd be very happy if I come to Nairobi or I go to another big show, which we don't do this often, Mr. Speaker, to see coffee from Narok, coffee from Kitale, coffee from Nyeri, coffee from Thika, and people are competing based on that. And those regulations cannot be uniform, in my view, Mr. Speaker. You know, the only time when you make them uniform is if you want to dance to the tune of the IMF, the World Bank, and the outside world that want you to continue feeding them and not really focusing on your own environment. We need to encourage research. I'm happy that this, one of the objects of this bill is to be able to change the Kenya Agricultural Livestock Research Organization to Coffee Research Institute. Yes, let us set up this research. You know, I love that, you know, but can it be informed by the different environments, different? We have seen, Mr. Speaker, coffee houses, you know, being established as big businesses in this country. It started just a few years ago, maybe a decade ago. But if we are not careful, Mr. Speaker, even those coffee houses will be run, all the profit will be owned by multinational corporations. I dare say right now, the two big coffee houses that we have in this country, because we have failed in educating or illuminating to the public on how important this coffee is, are owned by multinational corporations. There might be a small part of ownership which is owned by local people. But in terms of this research, I wish that there would be some universities which will take up and say, we really care about what we can gain here, so we want to make sure that there is a small research institute. You know, we need to know whether we can market our coffee effectively by blending different beans. We can even start with a blend and say we have got a blend from Transoia beans. The environment there is different. You know, I'm growing some coffee in Narok. The environment there is different. You know, other people are growing coffee in other areas. Can we blend those beans and say, this is, you know, Rift Valley beans being blended with this other one, and we sell and we make money? Just like what the tea industry has done in this country. Mr. Speaker, I know you are an advent traveler. But everywhere you go, when you go to big hotels, you'll find Kenyan tea, but it's not marketed as Kenyan tea. It's actually marketed as, is it Linton or Lip, whatever it's called? We need this research institute, which I support entirely, must now start looking at it and say, what will it take for us to take the beans from Tanzania? We've got some big farms there. Some of my friends have got big farms there that are growing coffee. And we say, let's blend it with beans from Mount Kenya region. Very, very important, and I hope that one of the reasons why I'm also supporting this is to be able to, these regulations that we are talking about must be able to clearly define the pricing mechanism. What pricing mechanism do we use to be able to market our coffee? If you go to Starbucks, Mr. Speaker, you will find that, Kenyan coffee is not branded or sold as coffee from Mount Kenya, coffee from this area. It's just Kenya. Ethiopia coffee, Ethiopia coffee. 5 different nations, different environments. So we need to be proud of that. So in terms of the pricing, that pricing goes also with the issue of transparency and accountability, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the tea sector, they will take all the tea, they'll get on a big, the train, they'll ride on the train all the way to Mombasa, and they'll auction the tea there. So the pricing will be decided there based on that auction. Not where the tea is produced. Mombasa doesn't produce tea. So I think it is timely that we look at it. One of the things that I would like us to take away, although, as I said, I'd like us to take away from this bill, is this role of really empowering cabinet secretaries. What we need to be doing is empowering CCs in charge of agriculture in counties. If you look at, as an example, section 94 of the bill, it says, the cabinet secretary may, in consultation with the board, make regulations prescribing anything that may be prescribed under this act. Why on earth are we giving these cabinet secretaries such powers? Mr. Speaker, I think we need to wake up. And there's normally say, we smell the coffee. Agriculture is devolved. Yes, the cabinet secretary formulate policies on different sectors, but we really want to give him so much power such that Governor Natembea in Tanzania cannot sit with his CC and go directly to the people there and say, can we work together as a cooperative and come up with policies or come up with a board to make regulations on how we are going to trade, how we are going to make money. Everything must be about making money. We make money, we live well. Being poor, and especially now, is one of the most expensive things you can never have. But it's not that we're poor. It is that our minds are colonized. We do not produce what will help us build our economy. We produce what will help other economies build their own economies. Mr. Speaker, I have, reiterated on this, but let me just add more flesh into it. I think it's imperative, and I can see my time is ending, that we now need, and this is what I was saying, when we blend, we add value. You know, we can have, just like you have a wine connoisseur, you have the coffee ones. They say when you blend the beans from Transoia and the beans from Narok, you have this type of coffee. We add value to it. So these regulations must also enhance that. I want to end by saying, because I see my time is running up, that one thing that I don't see here, and I wish that the chairperson can look into this bill, and I hope that we can talk, so that it becomes neater when at the committee of the whole to change a few things. Because you might bring one, and then politics get in the way. No, we just want it this way. Because there's no bill, Mr. Speaker, that we pass here that has got no interest outside. Most of the bills we pass here are actually sponsored by lobbies out there. And we just come here, we fight for them, and then boom, the lobbies continue making all their money. We need to say, can we promote partnerships and collaborations? Can farmers in Narok, in Kajiado, not Kajiado, because maybe, yeah, even some part of Kajiado can also grow coffee. In Transoia, can we promote this? Do we make it possible? You know, because we give this Ministry of Agriculture a lot of money. You know, can we promote partnerships? Can we promote collaboration between the government, the private sector, even civil societies, because civil society do help, and the farmers, you know, to be able to ensure that we leverage the resources and we support the coffee growers. And finally, it is important to monitor and evaluate your progress. So I think one of the key things that is missing in this proposed legislation is the issue of monitoring and evaluating progress. You know, nothing should be set on stone, Mr. Speaker. You know, I had someone that said that change is constant. The only thing which is permanent is character. So when you are now saying, I've taken this, I'm monitoring it, are people buying it? You know, are people liking the coffee which is not blended? Are people liking the blended coffee? That should now guide us in terms of how do we develop, how do we add value so that we can ensure ultimately that the farmer benefits. I end by saying all these will work well, Mr. Speaker, for once, if we ensure a fiduciary responsibility, accountability, and transparency in every sector that we attempt to develop. Coffee is important, very, very important. The dairy sector is very, very important. You know, the tea sector is very, very important. I think it's about time, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of Agriculture should not concentrate most of their time in their office offices in Nairobi. But the cabinet secretary, who was a former colleague, should now be going to counties and saying, you know how I get so much money, and this money, it's like I'm just spending it in the boardrooms, or when I come to parliament, I say, oh, we lost 16B when we're importing rice. Why should we be importing? We can develop our own agricultural sector. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. My time is up.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support this bill. Mr. Speaker, I read somewhere that the more things change, the more they remain the same. If you look at, Mr. Speaker, this bill, the objective of the act that we intend to draw from this bill, the objective, Mr. Speaker, is that we have an act of parliament to provide for the establishment of the Coffee Board of Kenya and the Coffee Research Institute to produce for the role of national and county governments, provide for regulation, development, and promotion of coffee industry and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, nothing new. This is exactly, dear colleagues, what the law was when Honorable Speaker was a member of the National Assembly of Kenya in the early, at the beginning of this century, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, somebody got misguided and went and brought a bill that amalgamated all the boards in the country, from coffee to pyrethrum to cotton to sugar to everything, into some crazy thing called the Agricultural Food Act, AFA. And that was the beginning of the problem. Mr. Speaker, what happened at that time is that the Kenya Sugar Board of Kenya was in its books in the credit of excess of 6 billion Kenya shillings. So the moment they amalgamated this thing, that money disappeared, and that was the beginning of the collapse of the sugar industry in the sugar belt. I think somebody had thought that since that money was lying there, the sugar industry was very lucrative, that they would use that money to then inject into other meaningless boards that were really struggling, like the Pyrethrum Board of Kenya, for them to start and to become afloat. They were misguided. Mr. Speaker, I therefore strongly support this, that the coffee board must be there as standalone, just like a sugar board should be there as standalone, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, when I say these things, I remember the best brand called Arabica. Arabica, Mr. Speaker, is distinctive. It has got a strong aroma, and it has got a strong flavor. And what's more, Mr. Speaker, the Kenyan coffee Arabica has an aftertaste of wine. So that the people who partake of coffee and they pretend they don't take alcohol, more or less the same effects, and they don't have to go to their priest and repent that they partook of alcohol. Mr. Speaker, it is this uniqueness of the Kenyan Arabica that keeps on worrying me every day. That what went wrong? Because once upon a time, in my community, Kakamega was a serious producer of coffee. Bungoma was a serious producer of coffee. But down that enterprise has gone. Mr. Speaker, it's shameful that the plants were uprooted and without caring of where we were as a country. We are not doing badly. We were actually, whereas Brazil is number 1 and Switzerland is number 2, Kenya, we are a strong 16, number 16 in the whole world. So all we needed was imagination from the government to ensure that we support this particular sector. And where do people need support, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, where farmers need support is on pricing. There is no responsible government that just sits there and does not address the issue of the agricultural produce by their farmers. You must do something about pricing. Mr. Speaker, and as you do so, you tweak the price in such a manner that there is no farmer who at the end of a season declares a net loss. So responsible governments across the world give farmers guaranteed minimum returns. Mr. Speaker, sir, my predecessor, the senator for Narok, who I thought knows things only about milk, he has really impressed me. He has talked about, thank you, he has talked about the issue of cartels. Don't get it wrong. The cartels we are talking about in coffee, the cartels in coffee, they are not from pastures. The cartels, they are the very people in the coffee growing Kenya, in Mount Kenya. The cartels are the people of Mount Kenya. They are these people who understand the industry so well that they know how to play around with it, Mr. Speaker, so as to take advantage of the small-scale growers. In this country, coffee farming supports of these 6 million people, 800,000 are small-scale farmers. And a small-scale farmer, Mr. Speaker, through your mind to Kilifi, is an innocent person who knows that they will go to the farm, till the land, and what have you, at the end of it, they'll harvest. They don't know about the complexities of local and international markets. They don't know the complexities of cooperatives and so on. So these are the criminal who then becomes part of the cartels from that area, then takes advantage of this farmer. This is where the government must come in and protect, get rid of the cartels. I want to congratulate the Deputy President. He has been very strong on the cartels. But he doesn't finish the statement. He should finish it by saying who these characters are. I think one of these days, some people will take a record of people, which leads me to the next problem that affects these farmers. Are not the 800,000 farmers and not the ones who manage the factories. So the government must help in ensuring that management of factories is not done by those cartels, is done by people of integrity. It's amazing that in the midst of poor small-scale farmers, you have billionaires who don't even have a quarter an acre of coffee farm. Mr. Speaker, beyond managing those factories, it is now a stated fact, an agreed experience, that the best way to get the maximum from the small-scale farmers is usually by putting them in cooperative societies. The emergence of cooperative societies has also now become a big problem because the cartels now have swung into controlling the cooperative societies. So that the cooperative movement that was very active earlier on in our life, Mr. Speaker, you remember, Mr. Speaker, the cooperative movement was so powerful at the beginning that the Nordic countries went and created the Cooperative College in Karen. Cooperative College was a gift from the Nordic countries because of the vibrancy of the cooperative movement in this country. A huge school, a huge institution. But thanks to cartels and mismanagement of cooperatives, the cooperative college has collapsed. It has been converted into the cooperative university. I see people celebrating that, oh, it is now a university. They don't know what loss it has attracted. What loss it has attracted to the...
What is the point of order, Senator Karungu?
Sorry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't wish to stop my senior as he is giving his statement, but he said that the Deputy President does not finish his statement when he says these cartels. He's talking about the cartels. Can he finish the statement when he's talking about those cartels? Mention them.
Mr. Speaker, the Senator of Kiambu is quite right that I should finish the cartels. Mr. Speaker, when I was talking about the cartels, I was not talking about the cartels from the point of lamenting that they are cartels. It was not from a point of acknowledgement that they are cartels. It was from a point of science Mr. Speaker, that we have to break. We have to break the chain, Mr. Speaker. And with all due respect, I mean well, if a donor can create and colleagues make time and go to cooperative university, it is something. If the Nordic countries saw how successful we were, I'm afraid, Mr. Speaker, the distinguished Senator Gloria probably was in the kindergarten, so she doesn't know those glory days. The cooperative movement.
Senator Boni,
Yes.
you said the cooperative college, which is now a university, the change was a result of the actions of cartels. So then Senator Karungu rose on a point of order and said, kindly finish your statement by naming these cartels who contributed to the collapse of cooperative college that is now cooperative university.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, viewed it that way, I owe it to this House. The farthest I can go, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Mazayo?
I'm sure he's...
Bwana Spika, ningependa kumsaidia ndugu yangu Kalwale mweleza ama kutamka tu ya kwamba hakusema kwa njia mbaya ama nia mbaya ya kwamba Mheshimiwa Naibu Rais anasaidia ama anashirikiana na wale watu wa katili. Yeye amesema tu ni kwamba kunao wale watu wa katikati ambao nia yao ni kuchukua.
So what is the point of order, Senator Mazayo?
Pardon?
What is the point of order, Senator?
A point of order, hoja yangu nidhamu ilikuwa kuweza kumweka usawa yule chairman wa Rhodes.
Now, Senator Mazayo.
Ili asiweze kumuingilia katikati. Kuna tabia Bwana Speaker, nisikize kidogo na mimi niongee. Kuna tabia moja ambayo iko hapa ambayo kama ako na line anachukua line yake ya kuweza kueleza ama kuweza katika mswada.
Senator Mazayo, you're out of order. I wish you rose on a point of information because you want to assist a colleague with certain information, but not on a point of order. So I overrule that point of order. Proceed and conclude, Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I truly thank the Senator for Kilifi for informing me through a point of order, but so that I don't look like I'm running away from the things I believe in. When I stood in public and I said that cartels in the sugar industry were finishing my community, I completed the statement, and on the spot, His Excellency stood up and said, "Mambo ni matatu." And thanks to the Mambo ni matatu, the nonsense has ended. So it is important the people in the coffee
Senator
sector.
Boni, in
Yes.
equal measure, can you complete your statement just like you did when
Yes.
you're in Western?
Yes, yes, Mr. Speaker. So because the coffee industry collapsed several years ago in our area, where the cartels are now active is in the Mount Kenya region. I wish I knew their names. You guys, you are lucky. I wish I knew you. I would say it here now, and you will do nothing. Mr. Speaker, they are lucky, wherever they are. Let them thank God. But Dangwa, my brother Dangwa, big courage. Do you know, Dangwa, I was a small boy in a town called Fort Hall. I don't think you know Fort Hall. Fort Hall is the town you call these days Muranga. When I was in Fort Hall as a little boy, we used to see coffee. And Muranga, Kiambu were beautiful. These ugly buildings you see here in Kiambu, they annoy me when I remember the coffee that I used to see. And that coffee was giving this country a lot of forex. We have dropped from where we were. We are now at number 16. And so that the farmers of this country can know that there is nothing in houses where you have to chase people every month to collect your rent of 20,000. Brazil earns, Mr. Speaker, at number 1, it earns $6 billion from coffee. At number 2, Switzerland earns 3.6 USD billion from coffee. That's what we killed when some jokers came and cheated people in Kiambu and Murang'a that let us replace the red soil with buildings. We must, as legislators, fight and help the president in ensuring that this housing program can succeed so that people can be moved from that red soil, that rich farmland. And I would have liked to continue, but because I can see colleagues are queuing, let me give them my time and I support very strongly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this bill. Mr. Speaker, for me, I would like to say that I am a bit confused. And the reason I'm confused is that to me, government exists in perpetuity. And as Honorable Boni Khalwale has said, some research was done in the agriculture sector, and a decision was made to amalgamate institutions in the sector and come up with one big institution with departments. Mr. Speaker, I say so because this is not the first time we've had a coffee board of Kenya or a coffee law. We are actually trying to go back to where we were before that amalgamation was done. Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether the key thing is just to isolate it from the bigger institution or whether it brings on board key material issues that we will need to look at. And Mr. Speaker, allow me to ask the chair of the Agriculture Committee to kindly favor this House with some opinion on what I have just raised, on what it means to continue having the institution that is in place, and then starting to hive out other small institutions out of that, without bringing an amendment to the bigger law to ensure that we have hived out, whether it is the coffee bill, and I believe the sugar bill is also coming in place. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, allow me to go to the content.
Senator Muma. Senator Gloria wishes to inform you. Would you accede to that? Can you proceed, Senator?
I accept, Mr. Speaker.
A point of information on why the Kenya Kwanza government is intentional on this coffee industry is that there are some regulations and there are some details on how you are going to control the pricing or even just incentivizing the farmers to push on the coffee production that cannot be attained within the bigger scope of that bigger organization that you're talking about. And that is why we are now being intentional and we are moving all matters with regards to coffee towards a specific agency that will just be dealing with coffee. That is my point of information.
Mr. Speaker, I would still request that the chair addresses the issue that I asked. I did not ask the intentions of Kenya Kwanza on what they want to do with the coffee industry. Mr. Speaker, coming to the content of this bill, again on the responsibility of the Senate, knowing that agriculture is a devolved function, I would have wanted to see a law that strengthens the intergovernmental relations, that recognizes that agriculture is devolved, therefore the key functions lie with the county governments, one that therefore structures the law in a manner that actually respects that. Mr. Speaker, I would have also wanted to see a law that respects the principles of the Constitution, one that would be centered on the rights of the very people we would want to be helping with this law. Mr. Speaker, this law needs to be stronger on supporting the coffee farmer. I have not seen a strength in that. I have seen a strength on establishing an institution that is not different from the coffee board that existed before, and we all know that the coffee board that existed before ended up serving perhaps those people that are referred to by Senator Boni Khalwale as cartels. It ended up being a tool that was used by a few wealthy people against the majority of the small-scale farmers. Mr. Speaker, when you look at clause 7, in terms of the persons who are supposed to form the coffee board, Mr. Speaker, I find that that clause, number 1, does not guarantee, in accordance with Article 27 of the Constitution, that the necessary gender ratios will be achieved. So I would want to request that the movers of the bill ensure they put in a clause that will ensure that once appointments have been done, they respect the constitutional provision under Article 27(8) that requires that the appointive bodies must respect the 2/3 gender rule. This would mean that whoever is appointing must come up with a formula that will not violate this. Mr. Speaker, I also see a pattern that may very well suggest that the bigger coffee farmers belong to national government and the small-scale farmers belong to the county governments. That is a bad fallacy. When you look at when you look at 7(1)(d), it is proposing that 2 persons of the opposite gender representing small-scale coffee growers be nominated by the Council of Governors. And then later, you see at 1H, at 1G, sorry, that 1 person representing an association of coffee farmers nominated by the cabinet secretary, trying to suggest that the bigger scale farmers belong to national government and the small scale farmer belongs to the county government. Mr. Speaker, this is splitting hairs. There is no large scale farmer who is not situated in a county. And we must not, by these clauses, hive off what actually belongs to the county and give it to the national government. And when it comes to the function, Mr. Speaker, I would want to see a function that requires that the board acts in the best interest of coffee farmers, both small scale and large scale. So that this is not just a board that directs farmers on what to do, directs farmers around the prices, directs matters relating to licensing, but does not listen to the people. I have not seen a clause that provides for a public participation in terms of decision making that ensures that the decision that carries the day is a decision that is in the best interest of the farmers. Mr. Speaker, as I finalize, I want to speak to Schedule 2 And the Schedule 2, in my view, has actually determined which licenses will be issued by the board and which licenses will be issued by the county governments and which licenses would be issued by the Capital Market Authority. I wish to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that in that schedule, functions of counties have actually been given to the board. And that is something I would want that the committee relooks at to ensure that we are not clawing back on the constitutional functional assignment to county governments and taking mandates that belong to counties, giving them to a board that is in the control of national government and therefore clawing back on county functions. So whereas I support and I still insist we need to find out the rationale, we are going to waste public resources if we have the amalgam of the agriculture institutions carrying out functions including coffee and then having yet another body similar to the one that didn't work for us being put in place. So I'm in very good faith requesting that the committee consider the issues that I'm talking about so that by the time we pass this law, we are passing a law that is truly people-centered, that is truly farmer-centered. Mr. Speaker, even as I spoke about gender, one issue I forgot on clause 7, we need to recognize that coffee is planted in many counties. We might want to actually have a clause to ensure that members of that board are drawn from the different counties where coffee is grown in this country. Coffee is grown in Mount Kenya, coffee is grown in Rift Valley, coffee is grown in Western Kenya. I believe coffee can be grown at the coast, in some in Kwale and elsewhere. So we must also ensure that the representation on that board reflects the different counties that want to participate in coffee growing. Mr. Speaker, I also suggest the chairman who is supposed to be appointed by the president is that we have not suggested who that chairman should be. My view is that the chair of this board must be a coffee farmer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when I stand here before you today, some people might think that this gentleman, senator, comes from Marsabit, Northeastern Province, or Upper Eastern. What does he know about coffee? But apparently, Honorable Speaker, Marsabit is coffee growing county, especially on the hill of Marsabit Mountain, which is called Saku. And when I was a young boy, we used to go and farm in those coffee plantations. And Honorable Speaker, we had the best coffee that comes from Marsabit. Honorable Speaker, this bill, I want to agree with Senator Muma that this is supposed to be a county issue, and it is devolved function. Agriculture is a devolved function. But what is happening, Honorable Speaker, is the devolved functions are not being fed with money. The government is not releasing funds. I think counties are able and capable to manage coffee or any agricultural produce in their counties. Honorable Speaker, we have 35 counties in this country out of 47. And we can have even more counties if there is an institution that can look at other counties that can also produce or cultivate coffee tree. Honorable Speaker, about 3 months ago, we had an opportunity to visit Jebel Ali Free Zone. And what we found there is a Kenyan tea being packed in a warehouse, blended and packed. And after it's being packed, it is given a different name, or the marking is completely different. The origin of the tea is from Kenya, but after blending, it is being given a different name. and is going to different countries in Asia and even Europe. Honorable Speaker, when we asked the manager of KTDA, he told us, I asked him, why are we not doing this blending in a warehouse, a bonded warehouse in Kenya? And the answer was, Honorable Speaker, very simple. He says, when we import packaging papers, the duties, taxes on them are very high. And after packing, sending it also is a lot of issues. So, Speaker, that is the only reason why we should send our Kenya Tea Development Authority to go and repack our tea in UAE, Dubai. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the origin of coffee today, is from Ethiopia, 1,000 years old. And if you go to Ethiopia today, from morning to evening, even night, people are taking coffee. They don't take tea that much, they take coffee. That by itself is helping the country to even cultivate more and produce more. Honorable Speaker, Ethiopia, like Honorable Khalwale said, Kenya is truly in number 16, position 16. And of course, Ethiopia is position 6 in the country, followed by Uganda in position 8. If we manage our agriculture sector well, Your Honorable Speaker, I'm sure we are going to do better than the current position of position 16. Honorable Speaker, coffee is planted and consumed worldwide. Honorable Speaker, this is in today, if you look at the varieties of coffee, Arabica is mainly cultivated in Latin America, while Robusta is predominantly in Africa. If you look at production of coffee today, the best you can do is 2,300 kilograms to 3,000 kilograms per hectare. And today in the world, coffee is the most beloved beverages that is consumed worldwide. Honorable Speaker, the problem today is facing Kenya is cost of production. This bill should address cost of producing coffee per kilogram. Initially, when we were in school, I know very well, coffee production is about 30 to 40 shillings per kilo. Today, it is from 80 to 100 shillings per kilo production of coffee. Honorable Speaker, the problem this bill should address also is farmers, our farmers in Kenya. After cultivating the coffee, doing the most hardest work, producing that coffee, the prices they are going to be offered, they will know this price, that whatever they are going to be offered after the produce has been sold, that is the time they will know the price they have gotten for the hard-earned money. In fact, the farmers lose control of their produce after it has gone for milling. Once it leaves your farm, you have no control over it anymore. It is being managed by people who don't even cultivate coffee, sadly, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, we must have a solution for our coffee cultivation. The first solution, Honorable Speaker, is to reserve a price, a reserve price that the government must establish, that the price of coffee or any agriculture produce should not go below this much. Number two, establishing of funds to cushion in case of any farmer or farmers loses their price they wanted. The other issue, number three, Honorable Speaker, is prompt payment. Not only coffee farmers, many farmers, after they've sold their produce, even tea farmers, sugarcane farmers, will wait for the payment for even up to 2 years. That must change. Honorable Speaker, the other most important issue is to give our farmers or recommend a direct sales so that the farmer can sell his produce direct to wherever he wants, any place, anywhere in this world. And also, Honorable Speaker, payment should be done in US dollars because consumption of this particular variety or coffee is being mainly exported to Europe or Asia. Another issue, Honorable Speaker, which is number 6, branding of our coffee. Honorable Speaker, the government should not even must try and see how they can support our farmers to brand their produce as produce of Kenya after marketing it, after doing the necessary packing so that the farmer can reap the maximum profit out of his produce. Honorable Speaker, I think the government have research stations in this country. And I don't know why they shouldn't how they can upgrade cultivation of coffee in Kenya by extending research officers to other counties, mainly those counties bordering Ethiopia, which is one of the counties I come from. Honorable Speaker, agriculture is a devolved function. It is prudent for this government to send funds, to release funds to the devolved functions instead of having it in law, things they have it in law, that agriculture is a devolved function. It is important for our government to release funds to those counties so that they can manage agriculture properly and well. Finally, Honorable Speaker, if you go to Kiambu areas, I've been going to Kiambu, and you will find so many coffee trees being uprooted and housing development coming up in those areas. Once you uproot coffee tree in a particular place, you need to replace it in any other place that is the coffee can grow. Honorable Speaker, I would want to stand here today to support this bill, but we should, you know, we've been having Coffee Board of Kenya. Since I was born, I've heard about Coffee Board of Kenya. I've heard about it, and I know it is disbanded, and I think this bill wants to bring that Coffee Board back again. It is something we've had, this issue of boards, and I don't think they can do any meaningful thing for us. I would want to see, like Senator Muma has said, we have 35 counties producing coffee. Those 35 can come together and have their own programs, how to cultivate, how to blend, how to export, how to sell, how to bring back this money into those counties. They can do that, they can manage it. So I think they can do some amendment, if that is possible, so that counties, instead of having coffee boards back again, they can use the 35 counties to come together and see if they can produce and blend and sell and export to other countries. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I beg to support.
Thank you, Senator Chute. Senator Wamatinga Wahome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I like to support this bill that is originating from a committee I sit in. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know that Senator Chute might not have the light information about the existence of Coffee Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am a product of coffee. When I was in school, all you needed to prove is that you have harvested some coffee, that your parents owned some, and you could go to school. Nobody was being chased out of school. Mr. Speaker, sir, up until in the 80s, when the IMF and the World Bank came with the structural adjustment programs that needed to see less of involvement of the government in the cooperative movements and a lot of private hands in it, that is where things started going south for us. Mr. Speaker, sir, this was the entry point, and I would want Senator Karware to listen to this, when the few informed cartels took advantage of the less involvement of the government, and a lot of farmers who are not aware of where even to capture the market from, and they took advantage of that. They crippled the cooperatives that were bringing the farmers together, ensured that the farmers did not have a corrective voice, and started systematically bringing them down. That is how one of the prestigious institutions in the name of Cooperative College of Kenya got lost. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have had various attempts to revive agricultural sector, be it coffee, be it milk, be it tea, be it sugar, or even be it cotton. I am proud, Mr. Speaker, sir, to say that before the committee that I sit in, the Committee of Agriculture, led by none other than a statutory farmer called Senator Murango, we have managed to bring before this House various bills that will ensure that we address this issue that has continued to oppress the farmers for the last couple of decades. Mr. Speaker, sir, the structural adjustment programs was an American, or do I say an Western concept of trying to dominate African economies by trying to dictate mechanisms that were only meant to work in societies where communities are highly informed, highly educated, and can be able to regulate themselves, including being able to work with market dynamics to be able to come together so that they could achieve economies of scale. given the background of most African countries, be it Zimbabwe, be it Zambia, be it Kenya, we lost in it because our population, most of it at that time, were highly illiterate, and most of them were small-scale farmers who could not be able to generate the economies of scale because they lacked the dynamics to come together. Mr. Speaker, sir, the bill as we have it before us, Mr. Speaker, yes, we are aware that there is AFA, Agricultural Food Association, that was meant to address the issues. But in this AFA, these were directorates that were not resourced enough, that only had one person sitting in a desk trying to manage a cash crop or trying to manage one product. And Mr. Speaker, sir, AFA is a disaster to this country. It became and compounded the problems faced by the farmers. We know as it is, even in the macadamia industry, Mr. Speaker, the market as it is today, after the COVID, where we did not have the luxurious demand of the macadamia, Mr. Speaker, in the Western countries, AFA, instead of moving with changing times, they denied people licenses to export in-shell macadamia. We have heard our farmers now cutting down and bringing down this macadamia tree because the prices collapsed. Mr. Speaker, we must create now boards that can be able to work with the dynamics and also use the forces of market, that's demand and supply, to respond to the farmers' needs. Yes, Mr. Speaker, I do agree with Senator Catherine Muma. The boards must be farmer-centric. The boards must be in a position to promote democracy. And that's why anybody who will lead through the bill will see that the county governments have been given a central role, including licensing of marketers. A role that has been up to now been played by central government, which is manned by one desk officer. Needless to say that most of even those desk officers that are in the directorate, they have no idea what coffee is, or any other crop for that matter. And that is why this bill is before this House, to cure the gaps that have been there, to seal the leakages that have seen that farmers have been exploited, and to ensure, most importantly, that farmers can be able even to project what kind of harvest, what kind of input, and what kind of output they'll have, including the prices that they're going to get for the product at the end of the year. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me surprise you by telling you that there are only 3 products in this world: milk, coffee, and tea, that a farmer will take to the market without knowing when the money will come and how much will come. When the farmer has to wait until he's told this is the price that you've been able to get. And even now, when it's how it's paid, they do not have a say. And when that price is paid, Mr. Speaker, sir, the farmer has no choice whether it is paid in dollars or in Kenya shillings or in Indian rupees for that matter. And that is why this bill is before us, Mr. Speaker, sir. The attempt of the bill is to cure the opaqueness of the market, where the farmers and the consumers cannot come together. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm happy to report in this House, as I left Columbia, where we had gone with the Deputy President to explore the models that they are using, we saw that most of the people in the coffee industry are young people, educated, highly informed, and they are running totally effective cooperative societies because theirs is formed on the basis of a willing seller and a willing buyer. Mr. Speaker, sir, we want also to bring agribusiness in this country in the hands of the young people. It is not lost to us as the House that Kenyan population is getting younger by the day. Mr. Speaker, sir, the farmers, most of whom are still very conservative, they hold into the old practices, they own the coffee farms, and moving forward, Mr. Speaker, we want to ensure that the younger generation takes up farming as an option. That's why we are talking about agribusiness and the young generation. But the only way we can be able to do that, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that it becomes attractive to the young people. One, the returns are good, and most importantly is that they know when they can get their returns. They are able to plan their life by ensuring that they can get whatever they put in the farms, they can get it out, and they know how much and when it's going to come. Mr. Speaker, sir, yes, agriculture is a devolved function. But we know that most of the county governments we have in Kenya, they have not been capacity built well enough to be able to access international markets. Unlike our neighbors Ethiopia, who consume quite a good proportion of their coffee, Kenya consumes very, very small proportion. Therefore, the only market that we are able to access is international market. To be able to do this, Mr. Speaker, sir, we need a strong coffee board that can be able to link up the consumers who are in foreign countries and the farmers, who most of them are small scale. Mr. Speaker, sir, that is why we, in the wisdom of the committee and after a thorough public participation, we ensured that the coffee board is not only going to be representative of the small farmers, but it is going to be controlled by the county governments, so that all the county governments led by the COG will have a strong say in how they market the coffee, the formation of economic blocks, and most importantly, the value addition. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is also not lost to us that most of the farmers have given up on coffee farming, and that is why production of Kenyan coffee has reduced from the 30 kilos per bush to only 3 kilos. We saw it in Ethiopia. We saw it in Colombia, Mr. Speaker, sir. Their production on average is up to 50 kilos per bush, and that would mean that without changing the acreage of coffee that we have in this country, we would be able to double or even triple the production. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we do this, it should not be lost to us that Kenyan coffee is one of the highest quality. It is used by most of the countries to blend and to improve the quality of their product, which is unfortunately then not marketed as a Kenyan coffee or as a Kenyan product, but rather as other countries' product. Mr. Speaker, sir, this has been the case because the regimes that have been there hitherto have not had any interest in ensuring that the farmer gets their rightful share, in ensuring that the Kenyan product gets a rightful share in the international market. Moving forward, Mr. Speaker, sir, and most importantly, now that we are facing a challenge of foreign exchange, it is important to know that from agriculture and from agribusiness, that this country can earn enough foreign reserve, but that can only happen if we use the right laws, if we ensure that the farmers get the maximum benefit of farming, and most importantly, to ensure that we access the most premium markets as it is they exist in the Western country. Mr. Speaker, sir, it would not I would not be doing this bill justice if I will not mention the effort that the committee has put in this bill. We have gone to various counties, including, Mr. Speaker, sir, your own county, where we did public participation. We spoke with the people, incorporated their views. We've sat with the executives. We've sat with the cooperatives. We've sat with the small-scale farmers, with large-scale farmers. And most importantly, Mr. Speaker, sir, we've sat down with marketers and producers and millers of coffee. This bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, it has incorporated the views of all these people, but it is a farmer-centric bill that will ensure that farmers in Kenya will no longer be exploited by people who take advantage because they can get access to markets where the farmers cannot. Most importantly, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have been able, and I would want to thank the government of the day, led by William Samoei Ruto, that they have for the first time in the history of this country been able to set minimum amount of 80 shillings, that being an advance payment that will be used to ensure that they caution the farmers so that in the panic which farmers have suffered up to now, they'll stop. The government is able to address Shelley hawking. Mr. Speaker, sir, for the first time in my county in Nyeri, I've seen for coffee consumers, I've seen coffee farmers come together with people from China, people from Korea, from America, from Germany, and they are negotiating and getting super deals about their product. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is only possible because we have made a bill and we are proposing, the law we are proposing, that is going even to ensure that when the farmers get their coffee sold, they are paid directly without having to go through the intermediaries, which has been the case as up to now. Mr. Speaker, sir, this bill, among the other bills that we are bringing from the Agricultural Committee, is meant to ensure that the farmers in this country will never be exploited again. Mr. Speaker, sir, This is an agricultural-rich country. And I would want to thank the government of William Samoei Ruto, because he is very intentional that we cannot continue relying on land-fed agriculture, on land-fed farming. He is very, very intentional. Using the new model of the public-private partnership, we are going to ensure that we construct large dams. We know as it is, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have heavy rainfall. We can see the destruction that's been caused by the water. Unfortunately, that water ends up in the ocean and we cannot use it anymore. Once the big dams are done, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would want to promise Kenyans, as much as things may look as they are today, that we are going to revolutionize this country. We are going to revolutionize the way we are doing agriculture. And most importantly, Mr. Speaker, sir, we are going to ensure that Kenya becomes one of the leading countries in green agriculture, in green energy, and most importantly, in green industrialization. This can only be done if we change the way we've been doing things. Empowering the county governments, empowering devolution, empowering the farmers, but most important, Mr. Speaker, sir, ensuring that we have sound laws in place that will not only protect the farmers, but will ensure that cooperative movements are strong, and the cooperative movements can be able to undertake even research, as it is in Colombia, Mr. Speaker, sir. We know that we've had some of the strongest research institutions in this country, but due to underfunding, Mr. Speaker, most of the researchers have left the country, most of them have gone to the Western. We need to reinforce this. We need to ensure that our research, our universities, including the institutions that are mandated with controlling coffee and other agricultural production, that they work in tandem so that they can bring the economy and the research and the crop and the yield in alignment with what is trading in the market. Mr. Speaker, sir, this cannot be done without utmost political goodwill. What the Kenya Kwanza government has brought on the table to ensure that we've been able to formulate all these bills is to bring utmost political goodwill in place, and this is what we are riding on to ensure that we do all the 9 bills that we'll be putting before this House to ensure that the farmers in this country will never again regret for being farmers. Mr. Speaker, sir, to bring the dignity, to dignify the farmers, will mean nothing short of paying them the rightful money in the right time, in the right quantity. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is very unfortunate that indeed in this country, even farmers who export their products, they do not know when they'll be paid because they use brokers, and we know that brokerage is weakly left in place. A coffee board that will ensure that the regulation of coffee by ensuring that when the coffee is brought together, consumers or buyers of coffee can come and walk in and come and take the grade and the quantity of coffee they want, when they want it, and in the quantity that they need it, so that the farmers will be able to attract top dollars. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is therefore my prayer to this House that this, among the many other bills that will be coming from the Agricultural Committee, that we will support